Looks like we're ready to go.
Yeah, we're in the air and in your hair.
Well, I guess that's like a good politician then.
What's a good politician?
One that's in the air.
Well, then our fellow who runs the show here is in the air all the time.
Very much so, yeah. Doing his best to ensure that his carbon tax policies are being readily enforced so that we can pay for his jet-setting experiences.
Yes, I know. He was waxing eloquently about how his feeling about the folks is that we don't want an election because he can read the room.
Well, but the only thing he could read. I noticed he wasn't doing a good job, though, because his lips are still moving.
Well, I thought it was pretty condescending to talk about not necessary to have an election, even though he's so low in the polls that two opposition parties have more apparently popularity than he does, his party. But in his view, that's just, the folks don't know.
Well, everybody's pretty undecided, yeah. And I think the only thing that they're decided on is that he has to go. But can he read the room that well? Well, that's hard to say. A narcissist usually doesn't.
I don't know what room he's in when he reads it, Bob. Because on the 19th of June, 2024, his popularity has never been worse than it is today. And if one reads the room, as he's supposed to be doing, does that include ducking, from the gravel that people throw at him from the side of the road and events like that? I mean, this is really, I don't know. You were telling me earlier that the Minister of Immigration had another brilliant pronouncement today, and I missed that.
Oh, no, I think he was the health minister, wasn't he?
Oh, the health minister, sorry.
He was the guy that was standing on the floor talking about his horrific childhood, I guess, about how he and his parents must have traveled all across the country. He couldn't stop for bathroom breaks, and they were locked in cars for 10 hours at a time. And now he's come out with the pontification, I guess is the best word, to say that the new dental plan that him and the alternate prime minister have tried to impact on people, that if you're conservative, you shouldn't be telling people not to sign up for this thing because it's going to go ahead, it's going to be great, and it's going to make the Liberal government look good.
Okay.
No proof of in the pudding, no support of documentation, nothing like that. It's just, what was the old thing you used to do? Throw jelly on the wall and see what would stick?
Yeah. Well, it's evidently, as you say, there's no proof in the pudding, or other than their party own tiny pointed heads and the folks who write up this stuff for this guy. The whole dental plan thing has been one that nobody asked for except for the old Democrat Party has-beens who have provided them their base with proof that they are able to do something in spite of the fact they're not in power. They're the third or fourth opposition party as far as their popularity goes, but they managed to prop up the Liberals with this dental care program.
Confidence agreement, yeah.
Yeah, which, okay, if we're living in look, the dental care program was a nice to have if you were living in a third world country. Most people in Canada who work already have dental plans, and the small percentage of people who don't, you're still able to write it off in your taxes. But all right, let's say you go along with the dental plan, which incidentally at the moment only impacts seniors because they don't have money to go beyond seniors, and even that plan is very limited in its application. So if dental plans were as good as the old Democratic Party would have you believe, then we could all go to England and take a look at how good the teeth of British are, who've had a dental plan in their socialist paradise, as far as that goes, since the war. Okay, and they have the worst teeth, I think, in Europe.
Well,
so dental plans are. I don't want to get our British viewers or listeners upset. But I mean, it's not exactly a ringing endorsement of dental plans. So,
well, it's like
and the pharma plan is the other harebrained scheme, which nobody asked for and really affects very few people. To wrap yourself in a sanctimonious wrap and say, well, people who have diabetes are going to get free metformin pills. Okay, fine. But that's not what we're talking about. A real pharma plan would be that you would be able to have most medications that require prescription either heavily subsidized at the pharmacy end or free, and then you get it part of your taxes. But I mean, the guys know how to raise taxes. They don't have any problems with that.
Yeah.
So if people will criticize us, I think, for saying, well, you don't see progress here. It's not that. It's that there's the whole effort is to try to convince people that this is all free. There's nothing free here. The pharmaceutical companies are not going to reduce the price of the product that they're selling to Canadian residents.
No.
Because the government says we're having a pharma plan. That cost is basically being passed on to everybody, from the highest to the lowest in the tax scheme.
Yeah.
Clearly, the bottom 30 or 40% don't pay tax anyway, so they're not going to be affected. That basically means that the makers are the ones who are going to be paying for this, while the takers are going to be getting something for nothing. But in fact, there's nothing free. This is why, inflation is just stubbornly high, because you can't have any growth that generates wealth because no one's investing.
Yeah.
But we don't need to go into economics 101 for the average person, because nobody believes. Listen, if it's too good to be true, it's not true. Okay, we know that.
Well, right. So except for that one thing there with that Nigerian prince, I don't know if you've signed up for him or not, but
he hasn't called me lately about the $1 million he would be prepared to give me if I were to give him my bank account. Yeah, no.
I think they're doing it now under the guise of pharmacare plans and the like. But
yeah. But it's what yesterday, as you know, I posted our article for the week on what I call the canary in the coal mine being Canada. Okay. And my point is that they're talking to people about stuff they aren't genuine about, and they're talking over our heads, and they think that we're all stupid. I mean, there seems to be some kind of a mindset among these folks that we, the great unwashed, are just plain dumb, and we're going to eat everything that they put in front of us because they know better. I mean, if they were truly worried about what they look like to us, the schleps who listen to this nonsense that they spew out about the economy, about immigration issues or tax issues, what have you, then they wouldn't be transparent and say, well, we spent $200,000 on meals alone to fly a bunch of our people over to some meeting in Africa, which, like, really, why couldn't you, why are you spending $200,000 plus for meals? And if you read the menu, it's out of a 5-star restaurant. Okay.
Well, I know the last time I was on an airplane, I think there was peanuts, pretzels. No, it wouldn't be peanuts because somebody might have an allergy. So it must have been pretzels and crackers, I think. Quite unbeknownst to the stewardess herself, or whatever you want to call them nowadays. She kind of blurted out, "What would you like, the kibbles or the bits?"
Yeah, no, it's they really need to smarten up a little bit, and I think this is not just tone deaf being the best words I can come up with respect to the voters and the people that they play this let them eat cake approach. This is not healthy. They can't do this for very long without getting people really angry. And they're doing such a good job at dividing us by gender and race and you know, giving away money willy-nilly to, you know, their warmongering pals, you know, to keep things going in Ukraine, you know. And I, you know, my position, not my country, not my war, not my problem. I feel sorry for Ukrainians and Russians who have a local problem there that they want to drag the rest of the world into an utter mess. Okay, but they just have no concept of you know, what a war means. They seem to think it's some kind of video game we're going to play, and when things get, when you lose the game, you push the reset button and we go back to normal. This is not a you know, a childish video game played you know, in front of your TV screen or on your monitor, and that's how these people talk. And in the meantime, billions are being spent to improve the various industries from California to New England to build, you know, weapons that end up, in some cases, not even in the hands of Ukrainians. It ends up in other places, and they'll mute about that. We don't want to. So, you know, they're just, you know, it's so depressing about how we're conned so much by these folks. And if it was just our guy, well, look at what's happening in Europe. You got that G7 meeting it looked like a meeting of people who really and truly needed help on so many levels. You had the President of the United States wandering all over the place, being escorted around by the Prime Minister of Italy because, you know, he didn't know where he was on that field that they continually show. And of course, then they say that's been edited. That's fake video. Not fake video. The guy is a 81-year-old semi-senile guy. Okay, this is you know, it's almost elder abuse that they do with this guy. I feel, you know, very sorry for him. I mean, you know, this is pathetic. Then you got two other fellas there. You know, Rishi, who's likely not to be prime minister after the next election because he's not going to win. His days are numbered. And Macron, the French dilettante, and he's not going to be anywhere very soon. Then you have two unelected nincompoops from the EU. Sorry to say that, because they're nobody. The people didn't elect them. These are two bureaucrats prancing about on the international stage. Nobody gave them a vote to do anything. And so I'm sorry for casting some sort of dispergences on the EU, but those two have no business, in my view, being at the G7 meeting, other than, you know, prancing. And by the way, the G7 is composed of 4 EU countries already. So what the hell are we talking about here?
Well, you know, you have to give these people their chance to bundle up to the trough, I guess. But you know, I think last week we had kind of mentioned the the issues with immigration and how it's become like a candy store item. And much to our detriment here in Canada, it's well beyond a candy store. It's become the go-to trading card on just about everything. And I'm not sure whether if you had a liberal government, a conservative government, a Democratic Party government, a green government, whether that would change. We had a visa slapped on Mexico for the longest time because they were coming up and abusing our refugee process. And all of a sudden it was, well, they're not really doing that bad, so we'll remove the visa. And well, guess what? The visa's gone, and people are still flocking up here. And instead of risking their life crossing the Rio Grande, they're now being trained in walking across the northern border, being smuggled. So did our government realize that this was going to happen, or are they just that inanely stupid to think that it wouldn't cause a problem?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the reason that the Mexican visa was yanked was because of free trade agreement. The NAFTA discussion it was problematic for Canada to keep that afloat if they wanted to have the free trade agreement with the U.S. and Canada, or U.S. and Mexico work.
But doesn't the U.S. have a visa requirement on Mexico?
Not to my knowledge, but I mean, we can check that. But but what does it matter? They just walk across the border anyway.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, visa schmisa. Listen, this morning I read in the paper that our population is now 41 million. We've gone up 1.5 million in less than a year. Like, where in the devil are all these people coming from? Well, the sudden fertility of Canadians hasn't rocketed through the roof here.
No, that goes back to that Supreme Court decision that says that you can't create two classes of citizenship, and it's okay for somebody to have 14 generations of kids in some other country, but they're all Canadians. And once again, and it goes back again. I think I told you yesterday about the gentleman out here in BC that had he murdered his wife, but I think he's been convicted of manslaughter. But he was the guy that, from a Caribbean country, been under various deportation orders since 2011, hasn't been removed. And I can't figure out for the life of me why that wouldn't be the case. Is it because the family didn't want him to go at one point? Is it because the courts overruled the deportation? Did the government get involved in it and stop the deportations for whatever reason? But ultimately, it ended up with this individual not only killing his wife, but dismembering her and taking her body all through the various parts of the Lower Mainland, so that I don't think anybody knows where her remains are or aren't. But we've taught him a lesson, because he's going to go to jail and he'll be deported at the end of his sentence here, provided we don't have some kind of left-wing government stand up and think that that's inhumane or shouldn't be done, or some justice who says that, well, he's a product of Canadian society. And I just have no faith.
Bob, you're depressing me with this kind of talk.
Well, it is depressing, and I guess that's really, I don't know, part of my bugbear about this whole thing is that here we are with BORDERPOL, and we can add an awful lot of stories and anecdotal information, I guess, but the reality is we have politicians who look at these things as votes. Our population went up 1.5 million. Well, guess what? How many illegals have come into the country in the last year and a half? Darn near 1.5 million.
Yep. what I find strange is that this phenomena is not just North American one. Obviously, the southern border is a complete sieve for our American pals. But you've got the movement from North Africa and African Asia into Europe. I mean, they keep talking about these cultures and whatever they're trying to maintain, but the countries are changing over the last 10 years rapidly. France is maybe France in the sense of the culture and the language and the traditions outside of the urban areas. But if you go to Paris, it's like being in Berlin. It's like being in London. It's like being in Rome. It's the polyglot movement, if you will, of migrants, literally millions of North Africans, Asians, what have you, all for the purpose of cheap labor, because I can't think of any other reason, who, by the way, do not integrate very well because neither of these countries, and the UK tossed them in as well, has a sterling reputation for doing things like inclusion and assimilation and all those sort of pillars that are necessary to have a healthy immigration program. None of these countries has a so-called immigration program. Yeah. What they have is a invasion, if you will, by people who share none of the cultural or traditional or legal or social values of the countries they want to go. They hate these places, but they all want to go there, which seems kind of peculiar to me. And as someone who's been to Europe a number of times in my lifetime, I've seen a change between these cities and these countries. And now they want to talk about ostracizing countries like Poland or Hungary or Slovakia or even now France, waking up and saying, wait a minute, we don't want this. We're French, we're Hungarians, we're Greeks. We don't want to be like homogenous with everybody else. And so then the question is, well, what drives this? Well, we know what drives it. The elephant in the room is cheap labor. Never mind all this malarkey about the social consequences of inclusion and diversity and all that. No, they don't care about that. You've got people who are making money on cheap labor. That's what it comes down to. What they don't care behind their gated communities and their ivory towers and what have you, who run this nonsense, is what's life like on the street for the displaced indigenous population. Okay.
Well, aren't we finding that too, Tom, with what's going on in Prince Edward Island now, where even the people that have come over for cheap labor can't get cheap labor?
That's right. A little tiny place like PEI, whose population is all up in arms because their kids can't find summer jobs at the local pizza place or the Tim Hortons or whatever, because you have all these foreigners, let's be honest here, who have been allowed into the province, far more than the number of jobs that would be available. And now they're complaining that there's no jobs for them.
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. How much water do you pour into the glass before it flows over? And so again, this is an issue that it raises ugly stuff, which is totally unnecessary, which is exactly what I said in my Substack article. These are pitting people against each other, which didn't need to happen. This is what these elitist individuals do. I can see that the frustration.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of that, and we've talked about it before. We used to have a very, very good immigration program. It had criteria that people had to be assessed against, and I don't think it was willy-nilly. I think it was well thought out. It talked about relatives in the country, jobs in the country,
Well, it was
the
labor
ability to
market
speak one of
based.
the official languages. And now that seems to have gone by the Ollie Ollie Oxenfree program, where, you know, if you get here, you get to stay,
Yeah.
because it takes so long to remove people. You know, how many, we had a case, I think it was earlier on this year, where the guy was crying the blues because he was going to be deported, and it had only taken him 15 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. But coupled with that, I don't know if I've told you, but out here in BC, in Surrey in particular, we've been foisted uh, by a political entity called the provincial government to have a municipal police force, which we don't really want, didn't really want, but have been saddled with and stuck with, to the point where, you know, they keep banding about numbers. Well, we got 400 people, but nobody knows how many of those are boots on the ground. We've got a bunch of people in training, but we don't know where they're in training, because the one school that does all the training for all municipal police forces, the sheriff's organization, the ambulances, etc., can only put so many people through. And just this week, lo and behold, because we can't get enough people into that system because of, one, the Surrey Police Force, or is it just because people don't want to be first responders? I don't know. But we had 4 courtrooms shut down because there wasn't sheriffs there to keep the order. And well, there's, oh, that'll be taken care of because we've got 2 graduates class going through. Well, the last graduating class that went through, of 20 some people, half to 3/4 of them jumped to the Surrey Police Force because the Surrey Police Force is getting more money than the BC Sheriff's is. Now, we've had court rulings from the Supreme Court that if you don't get a trial within a reasonable amount of time,
Yeah.
things get stayed.
Yeah.
And I don't know where this, again, it gets back to that depressing topic of governments and how they treat things as kids in a candy store, and what's good, what's bad. I really do think your article hit it right on the head. You know, we are the the canary in the coal mine here, and I don't know if we're going to last to 2025. I really don't.
Well, you know, I'm terribly pessimistic on that, and I shouldn't be, because it's not my nature. But I just don't I don't know how much the stress, you know, the community in total can take before it starts to fray and come apart. And when I hear this foolish talk by the head of the government saying that he doesn't think Canadians want to have an election, like, who does he think he is? Okay. But to be fair, he's not the problem as much as the fellow by the name of Jagmeet Singh is the problem. Here's a guy who represents a very small percentage of the population in this country. And if you want to use the analogy of the tail wagging the dog, this is the tail wagging the dog. This individual goes on about if he was prime minister, he would do that. He'll never be prime minister, okay? No chance mathematically at all of him ever being prime minister. And he's proving to be an opportunist of the worst kind. He simply is the worst kind of narcissist who prances around, double talks. He's now had about 2 or 3 weeks of interviews with various mainstream. I'm not even talking about you know, internet interviews. I'm talking about mainstream broadcasters asking questions, and this guy is the king of double talk. Absolute salads being made with vocabulary, but in each and every case, I mean, he says, yes, this government is despicable. I'm paraphrasing with my own words to be honest, but this is a despicable, dishonest, unethical government. But I'm still going to support them because I don't want to go to the polls and I'm going to find out they're going to kick my sorry backside out. That's what this is all about. So no wonder people go, this is so sad.
Well,
And we do one silly thing after the next. Here we are in an international crisis of really top door magnitude with NATO and Russia and China and what have you. And so what does the Canadian Navy do? It decides to, saunter into Havana with a supply ship to show that we're a tough Navy. There's the Russian submarine and a frigate and whatever, and the American submarine. This is asymmetrical, serious military stuff, and we don't even. Our Navy isn't even a Navy anymore; it's a Coast Guard, and so we're spending money shipping or sending a ship, down to Cuba to do what? Oh, because we have a long friendship with Cuba. What the heck are we talking about? This is silly. This is where this is the kind of nonsense that's coming out of the policy making of this government. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is childish. But you can say what you like about the foreign policy that's created by these guys. It wouldn't happen if it wasn't for Mr. Singh letting them carry on with this nonsense, or the double talk that's coming out of the Minister of Immigration's head about we're going to have first, second, third generation Canadians never set foot in this country, and they're going to be Canadians. I mean, what are we talking about here? Yeah. So if there's a universal approach to taking this place apart, they're doing it. And well, I have to sadly agree with you that I don't know how long the strains of these social, economic, and cultural pushes and pulls that are artificially created by this bunch will keep Confederation together, any more than our pals to the south, who have a choice between a dismal old man and a convicted felon. Those are your choices. Like, it's laughable. And and the felon's more popular than the dementia guy. So we got serious problems here.
Well, I guess it goes back to my recently departed idol, Rex Murphy.
Yes.
It's just really, really proving that people are trying to prove that you can suck and blow at the same time.
Yes.
And I don't know what eulogy was ever done for Rex Murphy. I don't know what would be on his tombstone, but boy, that would certainly be apt words. He hit the nail right on the head with most, and it's not just Canada. It's worldwide.
We really do. Well, it's a particular problem for the Western democracies as such, because we've lost our way collectively. What business we're in. Well, I should point out that I got a note from someone via our LinkedIn contacts. Wanted to know why we weren't or commenting on why we weren't doing the forums like we had before, and I had already said that there was really no call for it. And so I just want to reiterate to our LinkedIn viewers or LinkedIn listeners that the forum business was apropos when we actually had discussions about policy and with discussions technically about how things could be improved at the border. But I see no point in this going forward until we're living in a time when there can be an honest debate internationally about what do we do about transnational migration issues, because right now there is no discussion. It's this way or you are ostracized. You cannot question right now without being labeled something. So you can't bring together people who are going to have an adult conversation, because it's just not possible. The other part is the technical side. You can have all the meetings you like about how we have this technology and that technology to do the border make the border more secure, make the border more efficient. But it doesn't matter. You can have all that technology. If they're still walking across the border, that's just money being wasted. Again, a discussion that has no merit because you're spending time and money on something that has no impact on the flow of people across the border. I mean, there's no point in giving technology a boost for people who are legitimately going back and forth across the border or flying across, different countries. The margin of improvement is so narrow that it's silly. So when you see the serious problems that need to be addressed, and at the moment these are simply not in the playbook of the international community. They do not want, the leadership of the West simply does not want to discuss mass migration. They just don't want to deal with it. And to our BORDERPOL friends who want to kind of relive the past, you can't. We can't go back because we're not going forward. We're stuck right now in this very strange time when the borders are meaningless, quite frankly. And I don't think we do anybody any favors with that, whether it's the host community or welcoming the unwelcome, as I call them. This is at the moment we are. If it was a traffic light, it's like a traffic light that's flashing yellow, and no one knows what to do when they get to the flashing yellow. That's really where we are right now with that issue. So to come back and try and hold sort of an independent forum again, like we had in the past for all those years. Maybe one day we'll be able to do it when the environment changes. But at this point, there's just no need for it. We're not going to get governments to support an open, transparent, vibrant discussion on this because they are afraid of this, like the third rail on a subway car. So
we had a leader that coming up for almost 10 years ago was going to have the most honest and open and transparent government that Canada had ever seen, and I'm still waiting to see it. So
exactly. But anyway, Bob, we've hit. God, we're almost near the end of our time here.
Yeah.
But
we wandered, we strolled, we weaved, we ducked,
went down that highway, saw the same signs. It'd be a song, not.
No.
All right.
To put the analogy into musical terms, we sometimes hit this whole thing and wonder, why is there a stairway to heaven but a highway to hell? And we seem to get cut on that highway an awful lot.
Yeah, either that or we are at the intersection of the highway to heaven and the highway to hell, and the light's flashing yellow. We haven't figured out whether we should make a right or a left or drive straight through. Or boy, is that ever, Philip? That's deep. That is really deep.
It could be. Are you sure you didn't go into that well and turn it into a tunnel?
Yeah, or we're going down a rabbit hole, maybe. Anyhow, by the way, it's only 32 degrees here at the moment, which is hot, which is okay because it's called summer, and I love it. As you can see, the lake behind me is calm.
I think we're actually about 21 degrees, which is warm.
Yes.
Better than what we did have yesterday when the furnace ran.
Well,
and I see the Coquihalla, the pass that takes us over one of the mountain ranges here, did get a foot of snow yesterday. And various parts of our neighboring province, Alberta, was under a snow advisory.
We have 2 more days of people with their hair on fire here. So although the climate hysteria, as I wrote the other day, is just carrying on. There was a fellow, one of my neighbors, walked by today and said, I've never seen it this hot before. And I said, well, you can't see heat for one thing. Secondly, it has been. This is called summer, and it has been warm. And this is a beach town, and if we don't have warm weather, it's not a beach town anymore. Anyway, he didn't. It went over his head.
Well, that's true. But let's leave on a positive note.
Okay.
The sun, which is our detriment at times and our savior at times.
Yes.
It's at least 4 billion years old.
Yes.
Because that's how long they figured that we on Earth have been here. And it's kind of like a nuclear fuel that's been expending itself for 4 billion years. And moderate estimates are it's only probably going to be about another 2 or 3 billion years before it burns out. So does that mean that it's losing its ability to warm? And are we going to have now to go back to what we were about the 1970s, where we were going to have to worry about global colding now?
Yeah, but you're scaring me, Bob. That's not optimistic. You mean in 4 million years?
Billion.
Billion. Oh.
Yeah. We got to talk in governmentese now.
Okay. Well, I have it. Well, maybe if I wait a second, if we pay more carbon tax, that will solve the problem. Okay.
No.
Well, I think we're showing our disdain for that particular program. But anyway, yeah. So this is episode 20, season 3. Don't forget to hit the bell that says you like what we have to say. Write to us. We do write back. We even comment on it. As I said, we saw this thing on LinkedIn, and we're telling you why we're not doing a forum this year. Or we're not pressing it. And if you have an opportunity to buy us a coffee on our site, please do so, because we still have to pay for the bandwidth here. And by the way, a shout out, Bob, to our friends at Northern Perspectives, who are now having to pay their freight all on their own because the fellow who used to, or is still there, has had to quit his job with the federal government or give up his podcast. He decided to not give up his podcast. Unlike us, who are permanently on weekends, he has to work for a living, and so our thoughts are with them. Good luck with your podcast. You do good work, and we'll try to give you a shout out in the weeks ahead, see how you're doing. So
yeah,
that's it. From
there we are,
from the lake in the summertime, and you look after yourself there, Bob, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, we will.
With something positive.
Have fun.
Yeah, you too. Take care.